Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another session of A Piece of Cake with our esteemed brother on the right of my screen. Would you like to introduce yourself?
No. My name is Abdurraheem Green, if you don't know me. Alhamdulillah. And the other esteemed guest, we're not really guests, are we? We're sort of hosts of the show, isn't it? The other co-host, is obviously. Oh, you introduce yourself, bro.
Brother Anthony Baker, aka Abdul Haqq Baker.
We're both Anthonys. You're Anthony Baker, and I'm Anthony Green.
That's right. That's right. And who would have thought, eh?
I know, it's interesting. I was having this conversation yesterday about changing your name. And why did you change your name? And it's basically peer pressure. That's the reason I changed my name, because a lot of Muslims around me were saying, oh, you need to change your name. We can't say Anthony. We can't pronounce that strange name. You know, give yourself a Muslim name. And it's like, well, would I have done that, you know, in retrospect? I said, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have changed my name. It wasn't worth offending my mother.
Yes, exactly.
For something that is at the very best you could say is mustahab. Even that may be doubtful, right? But because my mother didn't like it. She did not like it. It's like, I called you Anthony. That's the name I gave you when you were born. That's what
my mum said the same. My mum said exactly the same. But I didn't go out looking for a name. Funnily, my mentor, and he still is a mentor to me. Remember Sheikh Suleiman Abdul Sabor, mashallah,
yeah.
After I took my shahada, he gave me the name. He said, after he got to know me a little bit in the first few weeks or whatever, he said, I'm calling you Abdul Haqq. And I said, what does it mean? He said, no, don't call me. He goes, no, this is what I see, and I'm calling you that, and you have to live up to it.
Mashallah.
So he gave me that name, and it's stuck ever since, mashallah.
It has some benefits, there's no doubt.
I keep both. I keep both names in my passport. I have both of them in my passport.
Yeah, me too. But today's topic, bro, interestingly, we started with that. But today's topic is, again, we're on the trajectory of this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that really talks about taking advantage of certain things that you have, blessings that Allah has given you. That often people do not appreciate those blessings until they've gone away.
Right.
So today is part 4, and it's your free time before you get busy.
Yes.
And I think obviously today, Abdul, this is so important. This is such a relevant topic today, isn't it?
Definitely.
So, why do you think it's so important today, making use of your free time before you get busy? Yeah.
I think it's important, Abdurraheem, because when we look at what society is calling us towards, it's preoccupation with frivolous, useless pastimes. We see this obsession with social media, and that social media has basically dominated, and it's the choice of many, particularly the younger generations now. And we see behind that people preferring to sit behind the keyboards, ignoring outdoor pursuits, ignoring what Allah has bestowed upon us of his creation. And we're seeing a lot of psychological, mental health issues and physiological problems coming as a result of not utilizing free time properly. So it's really relevant today, because when we look at when we were younger, Abdurraheem, we didn't have the internet and the like. And we're not saying it's disadvantageous. I'm not saying that at all. But there has to be a balance with regards to how we are utilizing things and how we are utilizing our time, our free time. And many don't like to have free time. We see in the work environment, they're saying people are thinking, and employers are thinking, and employees are thinking that you've got to live this highly stressed, active lifestyle. And, okay, if you can fit in going to the gym in the morning, and you've got your cappuccino or coffee in your hand as you're traveling to and from work, that this is the lifestyle. But when we look in actuality and we look honestly, not many can sustain those type of lifestyles. And are they adding busyness to their life, which is an unbeneficial, non-beneficial type of busyness?
Yeah.
We end up being sick or entering their grave.
That's very interesting, because it's almost like you're positing almost the opposite of what the hadith is saying. It's that, like, that you actually probably have, there are people who have free time, but they don't make use of it. And what do they do with their free time is they make themselves busy, and they make themselves busy in stuff that could either be unproductive, or even worse, it could be stressful or damaging. It could actually, like, they create stress for themselves in their life. It reminds me of that meme. You've probably seen that meme, and I'm probably going to struggle to remember it. And it's like, it talks about Western society where, you work hard to get money, and in the process, you ruin your health. And then when you've got the money, you spend that money on the health that you've ruined to make yourself feel better. There's more elements of it as well. I think there's a few things, but it's that whole point is that you're just busy for what? It reminds me of a beautiful story I heard once where, this American guy, he saw this fisherman playing with his grandchildren on the beach. And so he's sitting down talking to him, and he says, like, why aren't you out fishing? He said, I caught enough fish for today. He said, no, but why didn't you go and catch some more fish? And he said, well, why would I do that? And he said, well, when you catch more fish, you make more money, and then when you make more money, you could buy another boat. He said, well, why would I want to do that? And he says, well, you buy another boat, and then you can hire other people, and you can make more money. And he said, well, why would I want to do that? And he said, well, eventually you can make so much money that you can retire. And he said, well, what am I going to do with when I retire? He said, you can play with your grandchildren. And the guy says, I'm already playing with my grandchildren. Right? Well, why do I want to make myself so busy? Yeah, doing all of those things. I don't have time for my family. I don't have time for my friends. I don't have time for anything. All on the expectation that you might, this is the crazy thing. Abdul, this is one of the things that, like, even as a kid, there are a few things about Western society that even as a kid, it just didn't make sense to me. And one of the things that just made no sense to me is like the whole idea of working really hard so that you can retire when you're 60. I never got that, because it's like, what's the point of that? I just don't understand. Like, if I want free time, if I want to use free time when I'm young, when I'm 20 and I've got energy, right? And I've got vigor and I can do so much with my time. And why do I want to wait till I'm 60? When I'm 60, what am I going to be able to do when I'm 60? Right? Not that much. So why do you want to retire when you're 60? It doesn't make any sense. Actually, it makes more sense the opposite, right? Burn it up when you're a youth and just keep on working till you're dead. Because when you're older, so I don't know. There's a lot of things, man, about the whole Western society that didn't make, but I want to ask you this question. The question I wanted to ask you, Abdul, is what is the busiest time? Like, what is the time that you remember in your life when you were really busy? And I mean, I'm pretty sure I can remember a time. Like, you seemed pretty flipping busy when we were working together, right? In the days when you were Amir of Brixton Mosque, you were running the Al Ansar Center, right? And God knows how many other things that you were dealing with, right? I mean, the time when you were so busy in your life.
There was that.
Were you ever that busy, when you really felt, I have no free time? Like, I don't have time. I don't have time to spend with my kids. I don't have time to spend quality time with Tell us about that time.
No,
do you have any regrets?
There was that time that you mentioned, Al Ansar, running a vibrant young convert community mosque. 3 wives at the time, as you know, and children and everything. That was
3.
really,
I didn't know that, bro.
Yeah, you've forgotten. So that there
I
was
probably have, bro. Yeah.
and then when I moved, and that time was highly stressed in the UK context because of what the UK society brings in London. But when I moved to Saudi, that was a very busy period because at that time I was of a centre, language centre with a number of brothers that I was employing in there. We were very successful. I was a full-time student with my PhD. They gave me a concession that I could come and go when I was in Saudi Arabia. I'd started my street project, the strategy to
Oh
reach.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I started the street project. I was doing all of that, and at the same time still giving dawah in the ways that I could when I was over there. But what was different between the busyness that I had in the UK that you've described and in Saudi? Saudi is a lot more family oriented.
yeah.
And what I found is that after work, on the weekends, the holiday periods that you were given, I could spend, and even when I got home as well in the evening and everything, I could spend a lot of time with family, leisurely and otherwise. And also because the society is founded upon deen, I wasn't rushing around trying to find a place to pray or anything like that. It was just the adhan would go, everything would pause and stop, and it was all geared. Life was geared around the prayers. And do you know what, Abdurraheem? That's an amazing experience to live within. While being busy, the society recognizes now give this time in prayer collectively to Allah. So these are two periods of busyness that were there. But I want to come back to you on the other aspect now. And I want to ask you a question. Do you think that people flee from free time because they fear confronting thoughts and realities that will come to them that they'd otherwise be preoccupied, not thinking about, not
I
facing?
definitely think that. Absolutely. I think that I definitely know that I know people in my life. I think my mum was one of those people, definitely. It's like she kept herself super busy the whole time, like to the point of exhaustion, right? So she would, I mean, she was amazing, from that perspective. But she would be working in the garden, then she would be cooking, then she'd be, like she'd always be doing something. But I really felt that ultimately she didn't want to have time to stop and think, right? And I'm pretty sure it was like, because she wasn't, my mum, she wasn't stupid, she could come across sometimes as being, not that smart, but she was smart. She actually was really an intelligent person. And she could put on quite a good show of not being that smart. And she would, she'd put on this, oh, I'm not really, whatever, right? But there wasn't true. And I think the thing is that I think the big thing, she didn't want to confront these big questions, the big questions,
Right.
especially the questions about Islam. And I think one of the ways that she dealt with that is by keeping herself constantly busy. And it goes back to that thing. I think the big question is, what is the benefit of free time? And I think one of the great benefits of free time, and one of the ways that you should use free time constructively, is actually to ponder these deep questions. Or maybe as Muslims, we understand the framework of those deep questions. But it is just reinforcing that understanding that Allah has blessed us with, to know that we exist to know Allah. So, I mean, that is the great blessing of free time. The great blessing of free time, I think, is tadabbur, is deep contemplation. And I think I think a lot of people feel uncomfortable with that. And partly because of the Haqq, bro, is that for a lot of people, contemplation means looking into like a deep void, an empty space.
Right.
And that's really, really scary. Whereas for us, I think, when we take time and we look inward, I don't think it's scary in the sense of we're not looking at a void. I think we may definitely be facing uncomfortable things, because it always can be
Right.
uncomfortable looking at yourself in the mirror and dealing with your ego and dealing with your nafs. But it's not necessarily scary, it's challenging. But also we, because we understand what's the purpose of life, we understand why we are here.
Mm.
And so it can be very beautiful. It can be a magnificent journey. I always, for a long time, I've always thought that while so many people want to travel the world and see all the beautiful things in the world, the really amazing, the truly amazing things, even more amazing than, the Grand Canyon and the Everest and the pyramids, and even more amazing is when you start looking inside yourself in the realm of the soul and the realm of that your connection with Allah. That is so much more fascinating, so much more full of amazing things. And when you get insights, when the bits of the jigsaw fall
Right.
together, right?
Yeah.
For example, a lot of us, Abdul Haqq, right? A lot of us, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this. We have plans. There's things we want to do. There's plans we want to make. There's things, expectations we have for ourselves in life and for others as well. Often we have plans not just for ourselves, but plans for other people, whether it's our family, our friends, and we can get sometimes very frustrated when things don't go according to plan.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times have you found out that so however hard you tried to plan something and make it happen, it didn't happen?
Right.
And you got frustrated, and then somewhere down the line you just realized that Allah had another plan for you.
Yes.
And Allah's plan was so much better
Mm-hmm.
than whatever you planned for yourself, right? That's what I'm talking about, is these sort of beautiful, incredible moments of realization and understanding when you feel really connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you begin to, and then you can begin to really relax, and you don't worry and you don't stress, because Allah's is, that phrase, Allah's got your back, or your friends have got your back. I mean, Allah's looking after you. You
Right.
suddenly realize that whatever you want for yourself, Allah wants better for you, especially if you're his believing servant. You just have to trust Allah and trust that, let it happen. And these are very, very beautiful things, right? I mean,
I
they're
agree.
experiences. Yeah. So
I
I think
think.
this is part of the benefit of having free time, is to be able to um, contemplate and think about those things and appreciate them, and make that tadabbur, that deep reflection on these deep realities of life, mashallah,
Yeah.
tabarakallah.
And I think
So yeah, sorry.
I think that's very deep, and I think very relevant what you're saying. I think also that taking advantage of free time. Okay, as teenagers, as young people, you don't want to be bored. Boredom is something that, I'm bored, I've got nothing to do.
Yeah.
But also that needs to be considered in the light of, are you externally referencing? Are you looking for external validation all the time? When, as
good point.
that looking, that reflection inwardly, today societies are not pointing towards that. They don't want individuals to reflect and look, because in and of itself, you have to look at particular truths. You have to look at truths about yourself, about your environment. And if you're not doing that, if you're not taking advantage of that free time, you're going to go along with the tide or the flow of what society's telling you, whether you believe it or not. But you're going to go along with it because you've closed off all the free time that you've got to use that intellect, to self-reflect, to weigh yourself and your life in line with what is going on in the world. And when you remove all of that free time willfully, is it you controlling your life, or are you being controlled by the society that you're living in? And that's again why you'll see, I believe, or it's contributory towards mental health decline in that respect. So I think that we're told, the Prophet ﷺ, let's look at the wording, take advantage of your free time.
Yeah.
Because when we become preoccupied, Abdurraheem, we don't have time for anything else. Those, not even creature comforts, those essentials, those necessities that are there. How many people have poor diet? How many people have really bad sleeping habits? How many people have, gosh, you can just name it. How many of us don't have time for our children, don't have time for our wives? How many relationships have broken because of that when you had the time, you chose to do something else with that time away from your family. How many of us are in denial and avoid that denial by obliterating any free time that we have? So I think that taking advantage does include what you're saying. Taking advantage means taking time for yourself. Allah tells us about those who contemplate and say, "Rabbana ma khalaqtu hadha batilan, subhanaka fakina adhaban nar." Those who say, "Oh our Lord," when they're reflecting on the creation, "You have not made this in falsehood or futility. Subhanak, glory be to you. Protect us from the punishment of the fire." Those individuals who reflect, and Abdurraheem, some might think, okay, but what do you mean? Do we have to do dhikr in all of that free time that we have? No, but when you wake up in the morning, are you rushing towards something? When you're going to bed at night, are you falling into bed out of exhaustion? When you have free time, it's got to be cherished. Do you want to spend that free time with someone special and precious? Your wife, your husband, your children. Okay.
Kids, yeah.
Are you going to read? Are you going to nurture yourself, or are you going to just become brain dead? When I'm traveling to work in the mornings, Abdurraheem, again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I see when I'm looking, sometimes you can't help but see what people are doing on their gadgets, and these are adults, yeah, and they're gaming, they're watching soaps, they're watching, and I'm thinking, okay, that gaming that you're doing while you're going to work. Okay, is that because you don't want to face the reality of work, or it's the only time you've got to do this because of what your preoccupation at home? And I'm not blaming or criticizing them. I'm like, okay, you're traveling to work. We want to do different things. We want to occupy ourselves. I'm just asking, what is the reasoning? And I can't answer the question, obviously. What is the reason?
But that's already, yeah. I mean, I think the thing is, it comes down to this thing. What does it mean, make use of your free time? Because in a sense, the moment you make use of it, your free time becomes busy with something. So clearly the message is, it should be really it should be interpreted or be understood to mean that a lot of people generally will be busy with dunya things, and most people, they're not that fortunate to be able to avoid that. Right? For a lot of people, they have to work really, really hard. They have to get up at 6 a.m. There are people who, their survival is they have to go out, they have to work as a laborer, maybe the whole day. They'll be working 16 hours, who knows, carrying bricks or digging ditches, or I don't know what, picking fruit. Can you imagine some boring, mindless task that they have to do repetitively until their whole body is aching? This is the reality for a lot of people.
Yes.
So that whatever, that's being busy with something very mundane in the sense that it's not mentally stimulating. I'm not saying it's not good, it's not halal. Inshallah, Allah will reward them for it. And even with the right intention, we know even these things become acts of worship. But I think the point is that making use of your free time, I think it's the nature of human beings. We want to be busy with something. Most human beings want to be busy with something. So, you're going to use that time for something or another. So as you said, maybe you'll use that free time to play games. Maybe you'll use that free time to listen to music. Maybe you'll use that free time to watch movies. Maybe you'll use that free time for even worse things like getting drunk or taking drugs or getting high, or I don't know, whatever. There's a range of things that, that could get progressively worse that you'd use your free time for. But I think that what the Prophet ﷺ is telling us here, we have to take it within the context of what is the purpose of life. What is the Prophet ﷺ telling us about what life is about? And life is about, well, we're on this journey, we're going to Allah. What do I have to do with this world? I'm just a traveler who's sitting under the shade of a tree and continues on his journey. So you take what you need from this world, and what you need from this world is good deeds. That's what we need from this world. What we need from this world are good deeds, because that is what Allah is going to measure up for us on the Day of Judgment. So the point being is, your time that is free, what you should use it for is doing good deeds. Now, This brings to mind the group of people from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They used to, maybe you remember, they had a special name for them. I don't remember who they were called, but I think they were called the reciters or the memorizers or the hafaz. But they were a group of people. They basically would memorize Quran in the nighttime. In the daytime, they would go and they would chop wood and they would do work, and then they would use that money that they had earned to look after the poor and the needy people. And in the nighttime, they would spend their time memorizing the Quran. And there was a group of these people, like a whole group of them. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I think he sent them out from one expedition somewhere. They all got killed. Like, I think there was 16 or something, or maybe 40 of them. I don't know, this group of people. But I mean, there's a really amazing example of making use of every minute of your time in a useful way. So even when they're working in the dunya, even when they're working in the worldly things, even then their intention is to help the poor and the needy. And the nighttime, they're using it to memorize Quran. So their lives were very short. I mean, they must have been cut really, I mean, they had, your life is whatever Allah gives you your life. But the point being is, relatively, their life was short. And even their time in Islam was short. But mashallah, how they used that time that they had in such, subhanallah, a beneficial and amazing way. And I think that's the thing, is that, we really need to think about using our free time in a way that is going to bring us closer to Allah. But one other thing I do think is worth mentioning, I think everyone needs to understand this, that there's nothing wrong with using your free time as a way to recharge your batteries.
Right.
So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to love sitting in the green places. He used to love going to gardens and sitting there. Ibn Taymiyyah, similarly, he talked about how he used to, like I don't remember exactly what he used to say, but he used to go to the gardens, and it was like fresh air for his soul. It's like revitalized him.
And that's
so the other thing is, there's nothing wrong with doing something like going and playing football with the lads, or going walking on the mountains, hills. That's a good use of your free time as well. But with the right intention, that also becomes worship, right?
Exactly. So what you're speaking to there, Abdurraheem, as well, like we have in the fiqh, the jurisprudence categorizations, the mandub, that which neither earns you punishment or blessings, it is okay being in that particular space. And I think you've given an example about nature, being out there in nature and doing things. And so that's okay. And the example you gave of the companions, I don't think many of us, if at all, are going to aspire to such greatness with regards to worship. But it's a good reference to point out. I think with our free time, what we've got to make sure we're doing, as you said, as long as we're doing things that are beneficial to ourselves, health-wise and mentally and spiritually, and the calm one who reads when he's on the train, as he's highlighted, and I think by virtue of the fact that he says he's the calm one, I'm hoping that he's one of the examples of using his free time properly, hence the calmness, mashallah, Allahumma barak to our brother, and jazakallah khair for that. But I think that it's very, very important that the free time, even if we're doing nothing, seemingly nothing, but as you said, recharging those batteries, our mental health, physical health. Everyone needs some form of escapism. You gave some examples of escapism. When we're doing that escapism, it shouldn't be to an extreme extent. Okay, and we've got to remember that even if we're doing additional nawafil prayers or dhikr in this area here, that free time there, that tranquility that will come as a result of that reflection on the creation, that reflection upon Allah, that reflection upon our own creation, that's still in a period of free time, and you're just accruing blessings while doing that. So I think that's important. And let's move, Abdurraheem. I want to look at what happens when that free time has gone. And we're in a world now where we're seeing, as you can see, the pace of life in London, the pace of life in other societies, and people aspiring to be that busy, okay? And the effects of that busyness. Give me some examples for yourself where you found that you've been busy with the dawah, which is good. Livers saying time falls through my fingers like water. Yes, you can't hold on to it. Very good analogy there, Livers, mashallah. But Abdurraheem,
Yeah.
You're doing the dawah, so that's one thing about the busyness. And there's care in that, and I think everyone will recognize that. But I'm not saying to tell us everything, but when is there business when you're thinking, I wish it would stop. I don't want to be doing this because it's taking up too much of my time, and I feel like I'm treading water and not going in any direction.
Mm. I mean, I don't know, bro. I to be honest, I don't. I definitely felt that before I was Muslim. You know, I felt that a lot before I was Muslim. In fact, I would say before I was Muslim, that's generally what I felt about my life. I didn't understand. I was busy doing a lot of stuff that I had no idea why I was doing it. In fact, to be honest, that's a huge reason that I was driven towards Islam. That's why I was driven on this quest for spiritual truth and enlightenment, because I just felt that what was being presented to me in respect to my worldly opportunities was so shallow. It was so meaningless. It was so empty. I didn't understand. Like anyone who went to the type of school that I went to, and I think you went to quite a high-powered school as well, right? So, but mine was a private school, and so you couldn't really escape the fact that you had to work hard, because there was no escape. It's not like today when you have one teacher for 30-40 kids, and the teacher doesn't have the time to chase everyone up. It's no In a private school, it's like 1 on 10, right? You can't, there's no escape, right? There's no escape. So you had to work hard, but I just didn't really understand why. So I never really, so that in that sense I was busy with something I just felt was, I don't even know, want to say futile is not the right word, but I just didn't understand what it was. Whereas I never resented being busy for the Dawah. I never, that never made me feel, in fact, my problem was the opposite. My problem was that I was probably, and this is a huge topic, by the way, Abdul, right? We could open a huge topic with this, and that a lot of problems were caused by many of the brothers being so busy with dawah and so into the dawah and into the religion, they forgot their dunya, and that came to bite them back later. That came to harm them when it came to their families. That came to harm them when it came to their kids' education. And as some people have pointed out, in those days, we were so much into the dawah, we forgot about building schools for our kids and building communities, resilient communities where we could continue to survive. As Muslims, we were so busy trying to bring everyone, to the straight path and to the way of the Sunnah, that we forgot we didn't even think about how do we make it sustainable? How can we make it? That's one of the lessons I learned, when I started this Dawah organization, Abdul Haqq. One of the big things I took with me is that let's not make that mistake again. There's no point going around trying to convert the world to Islam, and then 2 months later, those people have left Islam because we didn't bother putting any effort into maintaining their Islam. That was just a waste of time. So hopefully we didn't make the same mistakes twice. But I didn't resent being busy with that. I didn't feel that was, like, I didn't look at it as being busy. When you're busy with something good, when you're busy with, worshiping, that's a blessing. Like you and me, Abdul Haq, Allah's blessed you to be busy with good things. Like whatever you're doing, there are a lot of people who don't have that blessing, and we need to feel for them and we need to respect them. And like I said, there's some people that only opportunity is to do really mundane tasks, and some people, unfortunately, maybe their only opportunity is doing something that might even be borderline haram, but they don't have options, and it's not going to fill their world with light. It's not going to fill their heart with happiness. And for those people, that's life is really tough. And I think that's the thing, that's the greatest blessing, that Allah allows you to be busy with doing good stuff.
I think
if Allah allows you and blesses you to be busy working for His deen, subhanallah, what a blessing that is. And you got to give to respect to people, like Abu Muntasir, who he was a manager in BT, right? Yet all that energy he put into giving dawah,
That's right.
That's the example of holding down a mundane job that
And,
must have
the
been
number of
really.
children. Remember the number
Huh?
of children, the number of
Yeah,
children.
yeah,
Oh, at the same
mashallah,
time.
yes,
Mashallah.
yes, yeah.
Mashallah.
That's really, you know, I mean, I've been there, you've been there, right? I've had to do those mundane jobs, being a taxi driver, painter decorator. You know,
Mashallah.
I think the hardest thing, the job I ever had was being a primary school teacher. Although it was in a Muslim school, but that wasn't any less
That's
absolutely shattering. That was the most, I mean, that, you know what, if I think of all the time in my life where that hadith applied to me, that was that time, that the year I was, because I would just go home exhausted and I had no energy to read Quran, no energy to learn Islam, no energy. Literally all I wanted to do was put the TV on and sit there like a zombie. I had no energy for anything. It was horrific, you know.
And that's what many go through, Abdurraheem, today.
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge that they Muslims, non-Muslims, they come home absolutely exhausted. We know what that looks like, and in that free time, we want a distraction. So the TV may be on. Okay, we might we may put something on the laptop, and we're not really paying attention to it.
No, not at all. I remember, bro, you said that I would not, if you asked me the next day, what did you see on the TV? I would say, I have no idea.
Right.
It was
and that's important because Abdurraheem, what you'll find, we can't always pick up. Like, I remember I tried it for a while with my free time. I think when I first came to Dean, and it was my late mother-in-law, when she came and looked at my bookshelf, she said, everything you've got on here is quite intense and deep and spiritual. And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. But then I realized you can't always dive into things that deep. So there's got to be a light reading, for example. There's some fantastic novels there, but light reading, light entertainment, light distractions in that regard there. It can't also, because we're not, but you and I aren't advocating that there's that intent. So you've finished reading Bukhari, now you've got to go into Muslim and you should read one Jews every day. If you're able to do that, good. And there are some who have that ability in that instance, but there's a fear. The Prophet ﷺ said, do not go to extremes in the religion, okay? Yeah. Because it will overcome you in that instance. So we're not saying to go to the other extreme, but I think that to acknowledge that we do get exhausted. We do. And we do want to switch.
And that's what I think the Prophet is talking about. You know, when a person's life is so busy that you're just so exhausted that even the little free time that you have is not really free. You're just trying to recover from that time you were busy.
Right.
That's so different from the time when it's not like that. You know, the time is, you know, you got lots of time to chill. You got a lot of time that's free. And then still you don't make use of it.
Right.
Now that's sort of criminal, right? But sometimes you need it, right? Sometimes you need that super busy time in your life to remind you of the blessing of free time. And that's it. The problem is most people just don't take use of it. Like that thing, I think that's understandable. People come home exhausted. They just got nothing left. The tank is empty.
Empty, that's right.
But how about when the tank isn't empty? How about when, you know what, Allah's blessed you to have a bit of wealth, and you know what, you don't have to work that hard, right? You can chill. Maybe you can work 3 days a week or 4 days a week. So what are you doing with your time then? How are you spending your time?
Right.
What are you using with that energy and that free? I mean, I'll be honest. I you know, I think I managed really well. I do think the smartphone and the advent of Instagram and TikTok has been really horrific for me personally. And I think that part of the reason it's so dangerous is because it's, I mean, generally, right, the algorithms, they sort of pick up what you're interested in, right? So if you're interested in religion or politics or, you know, some particular sport, it will feed you that stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like, for me, it was weird. Like people would say, oh, I'm wasting so much time on TikTok and it's just all a load of rubbish. And I would think, that's not my experience of Facebook, right? My experience was I was getting so much amazing, interesting information. That was the problem is that I was being fed this stream of like incredible information. But it was, in fact, a lot of information overload. It was like a lot of these tidbits that you're getting where you're never really looking at anything deeply. And then the problem is you don't do anything with that information. That's the problem thing. So I think that I have that problem. Like I'll find myself watching one TikTok and it'll be talking about, I don't know, the pandemic. And then I'll watch another TikTok, it'll be talking about what's happening in France, and I'll watch another one, it'll be American politics, and like I watch these things and each one of them is incredibly fascinating. But you know, when I step back at the end of the day, it's like, what did I really get from that? What have I really achieved? You know what? And it's that, in a sense, is almost more dangerous than, you know, watching a lot, you know, girls dancing around and stuff, whatever, because at least you know that's rubbish, and it's like you'll get fed up with it sooner or later.
You know what?
But
speaking to that,
you know, do you know what I'm saying, Abdul?
I do. Like, there's an interesting thing you said there about the algorithms and stuff like that. I think if in the free time, I know you read as well, Abdurraheem. What I found,
I used to. This is the thing that really upsets me. I used to read a lot. I still do, but I don't read like I used to.
But you know what?
I mean,
this is what I do. This is what I do, and I found it fascinating.
Yeah.
You and I've been reading for decades. Now, when I'm reading, if there are references in the books that I'm reading, if it's a biography, if it's anything like that, what is really good, I pause sometimes and I go online to look at the experience or the reference that has been made in the book. And that takes me down to trajectory of alternative learning. And it's amazing because I'm like, wow. Also, it brings me on to other literature as well. So in your times when we're reading, I'm saying to our brothers and sisters and the audience that's there, in your free time, if you do read, if you don't read, trust me, reading, don't watch the movie, read the book. The book, you're open imagination. You're not looking at the producers or director's imagination there. And then when these references, when they say, you might be reading the book from the 1930s and they talk about something. Now, they didn't have internet in the 1930s, but you know the archives are there. So you can say, let me just Google what this individual's talking about. And all this alternative information comes up that reinforces what is being said at that point. And for me, I'm not saying to do that all the time, but when reading, that is a really good way to utilize your free time and broaden your scope. And then you're just like, whoa, the amount of information. But at the same time, Abdurraheem, I want to touch upon, there have been times when we've been in between jobs. That's the polite way of saying, or unemployed. And I think you either find yourself busier catching up with a whole lot of stuff, or you're not doing anything. You're like, if I get a job. At that point, when you're in between the jobs, you're treading water. You've got to say, right, do you know what? Let me do the things that I know I wasn't able to do when I was working. So when the job starts now, you're focused on the job and you've got everything as aligned or in order as you need to be. And that includes quality time with your family and everything like that. Instead of just saying, well, I've got free time and I'm not going to do anything, yet we can get out of bed late if we want to. We can go to bed, stay up all night if we want to. But that's not the norm. And we've got to understand that's not the norm. And if we're doing that, are we really utilizing our free time properly? And the last point I make on this aspect of Raheem, just those of us who are like, we saw Octavia, Assalamu alaikum, and to some of the brothers and sisters who have salamed us, sometimes we may be doing something where, I'm just, I'm binging a bit. I'm being distracted a bit because I just want to do that at the moment. Okay, but remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said to Mu'adh, who was accompanying him on a journey, "Oh Mu'adh, fear Allah wherever you may be, and follow up a bad deed with a good one. It will wipe it out." So I remember from you, Abdurraheem, when we were traveling one time, Dawah, I've mentioned this a few times, and I don't know where we were. We'd finished doing a whole lot of talks and everything. We were absolutely exhausted. And I remember we were sitting in a living room somewhere up in North England. And I lay down. We had our places to go. They put beds and stuff for us. But I was so exhausted. I didn't want to move. And I got ready to lie down. And you just stood up and went to the corner. I was like, I looked at you and you just looked at me. And you said, Abdul Haqq, 1 rak'ah of witr. Who can't do 1 rak'ah of witr? Witr is it's that easy. Allah's made it really important and easy for us. And that was in the 90s, Abdurraheem. And that stuck with me. And I was like, you know what? I've got no argument against that. That's clear thing there. So even if we're distracted, and we're looking at free time and we're saying, okay, I'm really lazing around, I'm bumming about, whether it's at night and everything. at least try and do that one rak'ah, that one witr.
Yeah.
You might have to do it
Yeah.
every. You might have to do it once a week, but do that
Yeah.
one witr, knowing this witr, saying Surah Ikhlas in that after Fatiha, and then going to sleep afterwards. I've done a good deed. I might feel guilty about the way I've wasted my free time beforehand, but I might say, do you know what? Let me finish this evening with worship. If it's in the day, let me finish it. Like, let me just look around me instead of wasting time looking at the screen all the time. And let me say, or thank Allah for the eyes that I've got to see and the faculties I've got. To follow up with that, so it's within that period of free time.
MashaAllah, bro. I mean, you know, there's not much to add. I think it's one of those times when I'm just going to start repeating some of the stuff that you said. But I think the only thing I want to say to everybody is, look, and I just want to pick up where you mentioned about, you know, in between jobs, you might be unemployed. It may only be for a few days or a few weeks. The pandemic is a classic example of a time when people had masses amount of free time, relatively, you know, because they were being paid not to work. Literally, they were being paid money not to work. And I wonder how many people can look back on the pandemic and realize they had 2 years where they had huge amounts of free time. And it's a time you should ask yourself, what did you do? Did you upskill yourself? Did you improve your skills? Did you make yourself more employable? Did you make yourself more competent or whatever it skills you have, or just find something new to do, a new language to speak, you know, learn to program? There's so many, learn a new skill. There's so many things you could have done, and so many opportunities. We live in this world of opportunities. And, you know, the thing I really want to say, brothers and sisters, is that it is very tempting to fall into this pattern of just gratifying yourself with these short-term entertaining types of things, whether it's scrolling through TikTok or Instagram or whatever social media feed it is, or listening to music, watching movies and Netflix series, binging on Netflix and whatever it may be. And obviously these things do give you that sort of short-term like buzz for a minute. It just makes you feel like you've escaped. But in reality, most of us never feel really that good about ourselves afterwards. But if you put a little bit of effort into learning a new skill, in developing yourself, yes, the effort is more, and it may seem very like challenging and difficult, but that's exactly the reason why you feel good about it afterwards. And in the long run, it makes you feel much more happy in a more profound sense. And I think ultimately that's what it comes down to, making use of your free time before you get busy. Is that when Allah does bless you with some free time, use it for something good and constructive. Use it in some way to build yourself and make yourself a better person, because that's ultimately what's going to make you truly, profoundly and deeply happy. And then even more, if you can connect it to your worship with Allah, you're going to pay. You're going to not pay, but you're going to get the rewards from that in the life to come. Anyway, those are my final thoughts, bro.
No,
Any final thoughts?
I think that's amazing what you've said there. Octavian again saying the pandemic was the busiest time ever, especially in Ramadan. Running business. MashaAllah, Allahumma barak, MashaAllah, tabarakallah.
That's making good use of the time, MashaAllah, alhamdulillah.
Right. Alhamdulillah. I think as well, when we have these moments, it's okay to be bored. Sometimes it's all right to be bored. It's okay. Enjoy those moments, because one of the things that we've talked about it previously, but imagine being busy fighting the illness or the pain or discomfort that you're enduring. So you've got that free time, but that's been overcome by an illness.
Yeah.
You're busy mentally and physically battling that illness, because that's another time of busyness, Abdurraheem.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not a time of, that's not free time where I can relax. So what we really need to do is say, okay, in these moments, I'll use the term that you've used, recharge those batteries mentally, physically, spiritually. And if you're going to be bored for a short period of time, that's okay. As long as that boredom is temporary and it's not one that is being imposed upon you because you have nothing else to do. But it's okay to not be busy. It is okay, and that's my final word. It's okay to not be busy, but not to become lackadaisical and lazy, because we've got individuals who seek not to be busy. Okay, they seek this free time, and in that free time, so many things are falling off. They're not providing for their family. They're not there for their children. They're not there for their wives. They're not there for their husbands. They just wanna, I wanna chill. Now, back in the day, Abdurraheem, we knew about that. Go around our friends, roll up an 8 paper, kick back, bottle of whatever alcohol is there with us, and we were just happy. That was it. We were chilling, and everyone said, yeah, it's cool to chill. We had free time, but when you had to, now it's time to do something, we're like, nah, we're staying where we are. I'm just going to chill. Now, for me, that puts you in a state of mental and physical decay, because you have an inability to step up when you need to step up. So I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about having that free time to be so have a state of inertia that you can't do anything. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying when you're in that moment, try and understand.
You're right. It's the art. It's the art of chilling, and the art of chilling is knowing how to chill in a good constructive way.
That's right.
So that's the art of it, isn't it? It's not like, I mean, some people just can't chill at all, and then like the other extreme is some people, they just take it to an extreme and they just chill in the sense that they don't do anything positive with their life. But the real art is to find that middle ground that you know when to just be able to relax, to switch it off. And I think, like I said, we said it already, it's about recharging your batteries. That's what it's really it's really essential.
And we've had free time together, that when you know the art of chilling, you know that you can identify others who've got the same thing. And we may have a busy schedule, but when we say, right, this is our period of coming together, you and me used sometimes to say to me, before we go out and do what we're going to do, come an hour or two early. I used to come into your kitchen, you'd have breakfast, a nice coffee, we have the garden door open, and we just chilled. And then it's like, okay, you ready? Yeah, let's go.
You got it.
It's part of chilling, as you said. I think that's everyone hear that term from Abdurraheem. Understand and master the art of chilling. That's your free time. That's your free time.
If anyone needs to come to Chill School, I'll be opening the Art of Chill School soon.
I'll join you with that.
Inshallah, bro. MashaAllah. Bro, it's been a pleasure as always, bro. What a great episode. I think, bro, what did you have a topic that you wanted to, I know you've been itching to talk about something. Do you want to tell everyone what we might be talking about next week, or?
Well, we've got the last one
as a surprise.
Life Before Death next week.
Oh yeah, okay, right. Sorry,
and then what we're going to do, we're going to talk about living life to the fullest.
Inshallah.
And then we're going to talk about that preparation. For Inshallah.
Inshallah, bro. Inshallah. Well, until then, it's been a pleasure as always, bro. From me, Abdurraheem Green. Assalamu alaikum to all the listeners.
And from me, Assalamu alaikum to all the listeners as well. Till next week, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.